The typical spreadsheet contains lots of columns that will contain the same piece of information over and over. When these types of structures are moved into a database environment, sometimes the same habits come along for the ride. The first problem in developing a relational database is not realizing when you're storing redundant information, and effort needs to be taken to eliminate any potential tendency towards storing duplicate data. Duplicate data are an issue for a couple of reasons. First, they slow down the system by taking up extra bandwidth across the network and extra disk space on the server. Second, they're difficult to maintain, requiring multiple reads and writes to update records and keep things in sync. And finally, duplicated data runs the risk of becoming inconsistent. Let's take a look at how duplicates can occur and how the database design can help us out of this situation. Here we have a simplified table that's keeping track of our customers' purchases. We have the data broken down by the invoice number, and we can see the name of the customer, their shipping address, what product they ordered, and who manufactured that particular product. We have 3 invoices for the same customer, Bread Express, who ordered 3 different kinds of olive oil made by the same company, 2 trees. So far, so good. This structure gets us all of the information we need to correctly ship the products to the customer. But what happens if Bread Express calls us up and says they made a mistake? They recently moved and they need all the oils to go to their new storefront. In order to make that change in the database, we need to update the address on all 3 invoice lines. This creates a couple of opportunities to mix up our record keeping. What happens if we only update 2 and miss the 3rd? Or what happens if we type in 2 correctly but mistype one of them? This structure, while it initially seemed like it would meet our needs, becomes difficult to manage in the long term. The solution is to remove the components that repeat over and over again from the main invoices table and place them in completely different tables. We can do this by determining what fields depend on what other fields. In our case, the address really isn't telling us information about the invoice itself, but about the customer that placed the order. In other words, the address depends on the customer. Wherever we see this as the case, we'll do the following. First, remove the column that isn't dependent on the main topic of the table and place it in a new table. Then, make a copy of the column it was dependent on and place that in the new table alongside. If we apply this to our invoices table, we'll remove the address column from the main table and create a new table that is specifically about our customers. Now we have a simple way of looking up the correct address wherever we need it. When we want to know where to ship Bread Express's order, we'll look to the new customers table we just made and find the address listed there a single time. More importantly, in getting back to our example, it makes updates a breeze. We just change the information in a single location now, instead of having to go through and update every invoice. Now you might have noticed that we have a similar situation here with our manufacturers, although it might not be as apparent since all 3 invoices we're looking at were for different products. Here the product's manufacturer is describing the product being ordered and not really dependent on the invoice or customer placing the order. I'm going to make a huge assumption that we only have a single supplier for each type of oil. This may or may not be the case and would be something I would need to verify before implementing the following change. But if that is the case, then if we have more than one invoice showing, you would expect to see that every time first cold-pressed olive oil was ordered, it was supplied by the 2 Trees company. Again, the solution is to decompose our tables into smaller groupings of information about a single topic. So we'll take out the manufacturer's column from invoices and make a new table about products. Now, if a manufacturer changes for a particular oil, then it's a matter of simply updating a single area of our database, rather than going through every invoice and changing it there. So that's one way a well-structured database can help keep our information up to date, by eliminating the redundancy that is often present in simpler spreadsheet files, such as we saw with the customer addresses, and by making use of multiple tables to divide up the data into smaller related groups, it makes the data easier to manage in the long term.